that some of my best times in my professional career and some of my worst times in my professional career have been involved in education. And my biggest frustration with education is the conversion of talk into practice. So hopefully we can have 2 days of invigorating talk, and then we can actually put it into practice. Education is complicated. It requires multiple stakeholders, and it requires cross-collaboration. So for anybody in the audience looking to get rich quick, you should probably leave right now. It's not that kind of sector. It's a systemic, long, attritional march. It's deeply rewarding, both educationally, morally, and indeed financially, if you get it right and if you're willing to persevere through the long march. But it is not a get-rich-quick sector. Power of distance learning. And in the rural-based society, which is India, this is obviously critical. It is a huge challenge, but a huge opportunity. And also a man who understands assessment and benchmarking. Because again, the good news and bad news about education is you're only as good as your results. We can certainly have a debate about what results means. We can talk about formative assessment versus summative assessment. We can talk about, over-benchmarking and what gets lost as more holistic education. But ultimately, we need to have this industry being metriced. It needs to be metriced as a for-profit enterprise. It needs to be metriced as an educational enterprise. The people who give the money do, to a certain extent, get to set the rules. And that's appropriate. And in fact, that segues onto really what I want to talk to you about this morning, which is the US marketplace. Because the US is not dissimilar to India, although for very different reasons. It's at a very interesting inflection point in its education system. It used to have the best, however we want to define that, education system in the world. But that was 50 years ago. And for 50 years, it's really been in a state of decline. And I don't speak provocatively against the education system in the US because I'm part of the education system in the US. I think let's not confuse education with secondary education. Education, as I said, is complicated. It is multiple stakeholders, and it is also multiple subcomponents. Obviously, when we talk about education, we talk about early learning, we talk about primary, we talk about secondary, we talk about tertiary, higher ed in the form of basic higher ed as well as doctorate. We then talk about vocational training and education, and we then talk about lifelong learning. And as you can imagine, right there is 8 pillars, and then off of that, there are many sub-pillars and many tributaries. So you very quickly, when you get into the world of education, end up in a deeply multi-dimensionally complicated structural marketplace. Then furthermore, you have to look at the stakeholders within education.